Well, hello, Colorado. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for November 19th, 2023. Nearly every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state, see what's going on. And as always, you can go on freestatecolorado.com to find links to all the articles discussed this week, as well as other resources for the Liberty community. So, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a wild weekend with the special session going on down at the state capitol. Check out the video I did with Natalie Menton just a couple days ago, going over kind of a preview of the special session, what we're expecting. I'll have a lot more details on what happened during the special session, kind of do a full review after it's over. So check back for that. Won't talk about it too much today, but I'll bring up a couple things in regards to the special session because I think there's some of the key takeaways that we need to know about beyond these next few days. All right. So first article I want to talk about this week is from westward.com. TABOR for Dummies, what is it and how does it affect Colorado property taxes? From Hannah Metzger over at Westward, November 15th, 2023. As the Colorado Legislature convenes for a special session on property taxes, Westward explains how the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights fits into the discussion. There's the gold dome there. Skip past that first part, but what is TABOR? The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is an amendment to the state constitution that was passed by Colorado voters in 1992. It limits how the state government and local governments can raise and spend money. In short, TABOR requires voter approval for tax increases and limits the growth of government revenues and spending. So, of course, you can understand why fans of big government do not like TABOR. They don't like the ability of the requirement to ask voters for tax increases. And, of course, any limitation on the growth of government is something that most political types do not like. Any revenue generated over the set limit, which is calculated each year based on inflation and state population growth, must be returned to taxpayers unless they vote to let the government keep it. The money is often returned through refund checks, but can also be returned via, quote, any reasonable method, end quote, including property tax exemptions and income tax rate reductions. My goal was to limit the financial domination of state and local governments in the lives of Coloradans, says Douglas Bruce, former state representative and author of the TABOR Amendment. I knew government would lie and cheat. Boy, was he right. TABOR is considered one of the most restrictive tax policies in the nation. Colorado is the only state that has adopted it, with efforts failing at the ballot box in several other states, including Florida, Nebraska, and Oregon. While still substantial, TABOR's influence in Colorado has waned over the past 3 decades. Voters have loosened TABOR restrictions on most local governments in the state. 51 of Colorado's 64 counties have been de-Bruced, meaning voters have chosen to waive TABOR's strict government spending limits. This is also the case for 177 of Colorado's 178 school districts and for over 200 municipalities across the state. While the state government still must adhere to TABOR, legislators have recently turned to fees as a workaround for the revenue cap and ballot requirement. Now, the reality is most of those fees are actual taxes, and these lying legislators have been able to get away with increasing the tax burden on Coloradans by calling them fees. Very unfortunate. TABOR supporters champion it as a way to limit growth of government and force politicians to explain their spending to the people. Since the amendment took effect, Colorado voters have rejected 26 of 38 ballot measures intended to increase state revenue. Of the 12 successful measures, only 4 increased or created new taxes statewide, all of which were sin taxes on marijuana, tobacco, and gambling. The Taxpayers' Bill of Rights is a critical check on tax and spend politicians who continually want to grow government to unsustainable levels, says former State Representative Dave Williams, chair of the Colorado Republican Party. Government is too big and spends too much. Colorado Republicans will always side with the overwhelming majority of voters who demand politicians ask permission for any increases. While the Colorado GOP has rallied behind TABOR, the Colorado Democratic Party has made repealing TABOR its top taxation-related priority. So, of course, very unfortunate that the Colorado Democratic Party has it in their party platform to repeal the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, stripping Coloradans of their right to have a say on government spending. You can read the detractors if you would like, but the article goes on to talk about Proposition HH, the special session, and how TABOR is involved in both. So definitely check that out. There's a lot to be learned there, and of course, TABOR is something that must be protected and expanded if we want to have a free state. Let's go ahead and move on. So I wanted to bring up this article from a week ago from Fight Back News, news and views from the people's struggle. Colorado Palestine Coalition successfully shuts down state capitol. So there was a rally outside of the state capitol back on November 9th, led by the Students for a Democratic Society in Denver, joined a national walkout for Palestine to demand an end to U.S. aid to Israel. That continues on here, but what's really wild is that, here we go. State representatives decided to close the Capitol early that day, and protesters counted this as a successful shutdown of the offices that day. This is a victory for the pro-Palestine cause in Colorado as it continues to expand its movement. So these people are emboldened. Back on November 9th, they were able to shut down the state capitol. Very well organized. They definitely have money behind them. I mean, look at these signs. Signs like that are not cheap. Somebody else is printing them. Somebody's paying for them. Looks like newsds.org. So this Students for a Democratic Society, of course, which the old organization had been around in the 60s. The big Chicago riot outside the DNC DNC convention that back then. And of course, the Weather Underground came from them. So interesting to see these people still around. And why I bring this up, of course, to see an organized movement take credit for shutting down the state capitol about 10 days ago, is they basically did it again. So here during the special session on Saturday, yesterday, November 18th, these same people, it seems like, came into the state capitol, interrupted business, and was able to stop the proceedings. So this is from the Colorado Republican Party Twitter. Disgusting pro-Hamas activists are disrupting the Colorado Legislature special session. They are shouting, "There is no Jewish state," yelling at lawmakers and demanding a ceasefire while screaming they will be back as they are removed. What does McCluskey, who's the Speaker of the House, and the Colorado House Democratic Caucus do? They invite them to come back to the Capitol. Colorado Democrats are radical and do not truly support Israel. So check this out. So this is on our state capitol in Denver. Law enforcement had to get involved and show up there. Continue on. And of course, I don't know if these young people are confused because, of course, the state legislature has nothing to do with U.S. foreign policy, has nothing to do with what's going on over in the Middle East. But of course, they are probably just trying to agitate, get some attention for their cause, which they certainly did. I think that's the one where the lady was yelling, "There's no Jewish state." Law enforcement had to actually remove these people. So absolutely wild that this is going on in our state legislature, where these people are showing up, protesting, and shutting down the proceedings. I mean, very, very unfortunate. I've watched a lot of legislative sessions up from that gallery over the years, and for somebody to do this is totally inappropriate, and not really where doesn't not a good look, not a good look for the Democrats and how radical they've become. What's also very interesting is you can take a look at what Tim Hernandez's response to this was. Now, Tim Hernandez, of course, is a newly appointed, excuse me, legislator, representative from North Denver, who was celebrating the event of the day, even replaced his American flag with a Palestinian flag. So he was very excited about what happened that day, of course, just yesterday. Quote, "Standing in strong solidarity with Coloradans who bravely stood up and disrupted our job this morning calling for a ceasefire in Gaza." Wow. So there you go. Tim Hernandez, of course, supportive of what they did and very welcoming of the behavior. So not a good look for the Colorado Democrats, not a good sign for the future of our idea of representative government where where sitting legislators are cheering on these interruptions, these disruptions. So nonetheless, we'll go ahead and move on from this one. I wanted to share this letter to the editor from the Chaffee County Times, somebody local up there. really coming up with a solution that Natalie and I have been talking about for a while now, if you've watched my property tax series, and that's that local governments need to lower mill levies. It's really the purview of the local governments to lower property taxes. We don't pay in Colorado, we don't pay a state property tax. It all goes to the county, who then distributes to the local taxing agencies at that local level. So, really, the reality is that your local entity should be who's acting to lower your property taxes. So this letter goes, DeBruce entities should lower mill levies, November 15th, 2023. Dear editor, property owners in Chaffee County still have the opportunity to reduce their property taxes by actively engaging with taxing authorities and advocating for reduced mill levies. Now, of course, this is true all across Colorado. Property owners should be actively engaging with their local taxing authorities, advocating for reduction in the mill levy. They have until December, middle of December, to decide how much property taxes are going to collect the next year. Mill levies are determined by taxing authorities in December at the conclusion of each tax year. The tax estimate provided earlier in this year's notice of valuation is merely an approximation for tax planning. The 2024 tax liabilities for property owners won't be established until the end of 2023, when the mill levies are set by each taxing authority. This means that homeowners still have the chance to shape the ultimate tax burden on their properties. So this guy's 100% right. In his local community, he's asking people to reach out to Mary Brown, who's the board president of the Chaffee County Fire District. That is a local taxing entity. Cam Torrens, president of the BV Library Board. Ben Skanga, mayor of Poncha Springs. Harold Starbuck, board president of the South Arkansas Fire District, and Matthew Berkeley, president of the Salida Library Board. So all of those agencies collect property taxes, and they can all make a choice. Since taxes are going up so much, they have a choice to actually lower that mill levy, provide some needed relief, kind of slow down this increase at the local level. So thank you, Jerry Rasky, for your letter to the editor there, and I hope that people get involved in your local government and work to have your property taxes lowered. Let's go ahead and move on. So, talking a little bit about other solutions, this idea of direct democracy to basically protect Colorado property owners. This is denvergazette.com, updated November 17th, 2023. Business group files ballot measure to roll back Colorado property valuations to 2020 levels. The business group is pushing a ballot measure to roll back home and business property valuations to 2020 levels, announcing its aim on the eve of a special session in which Governor Jared Polis is asking lawmakers to figure out a way to provide Coloradans relief from soaring property taxes. Colorado Concern, a politically active alliance of top business executives, said its proposal, which it's filing on Thursday, would cap the growth of property value to avoid runaway property tax bills. The values would only reset upon the sale or major improvements. The group said that would establish a true market rate for tax calculation purposes. Homeowners and businesses should not be penalized with a massive tax hike as a result of a hot economic environment that sent prices soaring, said Mike Kopp, president and CEO of Colorado Concern. It is imperative to protect taxpayers from the kinds of painful price shocks they now face and will face again in the future if this system is not changed. He added, this problem erodes the budgets of Colorado families and small businesses. Our measure will roll back property tax valuations to their 2020 level, which will provide dramatic and direct relief, while permitting for modest annual growth that would allow local governments to provide necessary services. So it sounds like a great idea. Really interested to see the text of this measure and see if it's worth supporting. It sounds like it's probably a good idea. All right, let's move on. From the denvergazette.com, from Rachel Gable, November 13th, 2023. Outlawing Denver slaughterhouses is a step toward food scarcity. Look at all those sheep there. Sheep owned by Theo's Swallow Fork Ranch are moved through northwestern Colorado, causing the best kind of traffic jams. All right. A fringe animal rights activist group has submitted signatures to the Denver Clerk and Recorder to be certified to place a proposal on the municipal ballot to outlaw slaughterhouses in Denver. Not only is agriculture not at the table on this one, but consumers also won't have a voice either. The same group is also circulating a petition to prohibit fur products. The approved title is wrought with fear-mongering language that are sure to pull on the heartstrings of voters asked for a signature. Complete Colorado reported that treasurer for Pro-Animal Denver, which supports the ban, is reported to be Aidan Cook, a longtime animal rights activist from the Denver Boulder area who previously supported having the mutton busting competition pulled from the National Western Stock Show. At first blush, most people might assume there are no slaughterhouses in Denver, but Superior Farms is. It's one of the largest lamb processors in the country, and the majority of lamb consumed in the U.S. is raised, fed, or processed here in Colorado. Superior Farms, a company with a 70-year history, employs 170 employee owners, and if passed, the measure would cost the city of Denver $70 million to compensate the company for the forced closure. Yikes. So really, unfortunate to see these anti-agriculture activists at it again. It's not the first time. It's not the last time. This is something we got to watch for. Fighting, fighting against the meat and ranching industry seems to be a full-time job for some people out there, but we got to do everything we can to protect our food industry here in Colorado. Let's go ahead and move on. A couple stories from the election. Some stuff that maybe didn't make the big headlines right after election day a couple weeks ago now, but this was a big one from Complete Colorado, page 2. CompleteColorado.com is definitely a website you should be checking out every day. From Mike Kraus, November 13th, 2023. Mesa County voters decimate attempt to expand term limits for elected offices. Grand Junction. Voters in Mesa County on Election Tuesday thoroughly shot down a series of ballot measures aimed at expanding term limits for elected countywide offices. The Colorado Constitution limits local elected officials to 2 consecutive 4-year terms in office, but also authorizes voters to lengthen, shorten, or eliminate those restrictions at the ballot box. For example, Garfield County, also on the western slope, long ago did away with term limits entirely for all countywide offices, including commissioners, while voters in neighboring Montrose and Delta counties previously eliminated term limits for elected officials other than commissioners. So pretty interesting to see. Term limits is, of course, a hot button issue out there. I think most people, as we've seen in this Mesa County election, support term limits. Most people don't like the idea of politicians becoming career politicians, continuously serving, becoming entrenched, and losing touch with the people. I mean, that does happen. We've seen it all too often in Colorado and national politics. So, very interesting story out of Mesa County. Moving on, another interesting story from Weld County, from the Greeley Tribune, a gut punch. Weld RE8 school district to survey voters about unexpected MLO bond issue failures. So the MLO is the mill levy override. So the school district was asking for more tax money, of course, would increase property taxes in this area, and voters said no. I mean, I think it's a sign of the times that people do not want to pay more in property taxes. Also, a sign of the times that people are maybe losing trust in some of the government schooling, especially now that we have more people having less kids, right? Less children out there. People might be less inclined to support paying more for schools. November 17th, 2023, last updated. Weld RE8 school district staff in Fort Lupton want to know why voters in the district rejected the mill levy override in the bond issue. Staff had high hopes as Election Day approached, believing the community backed the funding that would have helped raise educators' salaries and jumpstart repairs to schools. A Magellan Strategies survey of 469 registered voters in the district indicated approval rates of about 65% for the mill levy override, or MLO, and about 72% for the bond issue. Instead, nearly 60% of voters rejected the MLO and nearly 59% rejected the bond. Wow. Very, very interesting to see this happen. Read that article if you'd like to know more. But maybe a sign of the times. People don't like the schools as much as they used to, and people definitely do not want to be paying any more in taxes. Let's go ahead and move on. Another one from the DenverGazette.com. Last updated November 17th, 2023. Electric heat to cost 77% more than natural gas, federal agency says. As you know, there is a war on natural gas and oil from our government and our political class here in Colorado. They've been going after the oil and gas industry for a long time, even though the oil and gas industry is giving Colorado the tools that is required for civilization. Oil and gas are the most energy dense, most energy efficient forms of fuel on the planet. And so for federal agencies or local agencies to attack our ability to use natural gas is only going to increase costs, as we've seen here. Of course, electric heat's more expensive. It's pretty not too surprising that that would be the case from the article. The average American household that uses electricity to heat a home this winter will pay hundreds of dollars more than those who use natural gas, according to a new report from a federal agency. The report from the U.S. Energy Information Administration said a home that uses electricity will pay 77% more or an average of $462 this winter compared to a household that uses natural gas. Yikes. So, Colorado officials have embraced electrification as a way to reach greenhouse gas emissions goals. Large buildings, for example, face requirements to make their energy use more efficient. In Denver, officials offer carrots and sticks in their efforts to cut carbon emissions and electrify buildings of a certain size. So, of course, what you see is there is a dramatic increase in energy costs and impose a regressive tax on the poor and the middle class, right? So, electrifying everything does not work. Check that article out if you're interested in more of the details. But natural gas, oil, they are extremely efficient and they're necessary to have a civilization. So when you see politicians, when you see these bureaucrats going after our ability to use natural gas, you know, uh, get involved and speak out. Move on. Unfortunate news out of the courtroom recently here from the denverpest.com. Judge allows Colorado gun reform law to stay in place while lawsuit continues. Gun rights group has challenged state's new 3-day waiting period law. So as last updated, looks like November 13th, 2023. A federal judge on Monday rejected a gun rights attempt to block Colorado's new waiting period for purchases, while a broader lawsuit challenging the rule winds its way through the court system. U.S. District Judge John Kane, boo, ruled that the new law, which requires Coloradans purchasing a firearm to wait at least 3 days before taking possession of the weapon, does not violate the Second Amendment or recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions that put new limits on gun reform measures. It was the second time this year that a court denied a request for an injunction against enforcing Colorado's waiting period law. The ruling is a win for Governor Jared Polis and his Democratic allies in the legislature. Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, a Colorado gun rights group that's challenged other new firearm restrictions, has tried unsuccessfully so far to block the waiting period measure. It first sued earlier this year, but was rebuffed by a different federal judge because the waiting period rule hadn't yet taken effect. RMGO refiled its lawsuit just after the law went into effect on October 1st. In a statement Monday, the group said it planned to appeal Kane's ruling in the case. If you're not a member of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, I do encourage you to join. If you have any extra money, throw it their way. These lawsuits are very expensive. Rocky Mountain Gun Owners has stopped the under 21 gun ban, which means that 18 to 20-year-olds here in Colorado are able to legally purchase a firearm. They're suing over the magazine ban, totally ridiculous. They're suing on the 3-day waiting period, and they want to sue on the ghost gun bill, but they just need the money. So we'll keep an eye on that, of course. All right, moving on. The Charlotte Observer, so making some national headlines here, but it's a Colorado story. November 15th, 2023. Man trying to break into home, shoots resident, then gets shot himself, Colorado police say. So, of course, we just talked about guns. Why are guns so important? Guns are the great equalizer. They're a tool that gives a woman, a 90-pound woman, the ability to fend off a 200-pound attacker guy. An elderly person who's home alone is able to defend themselves against a young person breaking down the door. An individual could defend themselves against a group of criminals out there. Only the firearm makes that possible. The firearm is a great equalizer, giving each individual the ability to protect themselves and their families. Let's check out the article. A man accused of trying to break into a home was shot after he shot a resident inside, Colorado police said. On November 11th, Greeley police officers went to a house on reports of an attempted burglary. According to a November 14th news release posted on Facebook by the department, a 26-year-old man, later identified as Guadalupe Balderas, was trying to kick open the door to the home, police said. There was a 26-year-old woman and a 24-year-old man inside, police said. The man was trying to keep Balderas from coming inside. Balderas is then accused of firing several rounds into the house. Before the man fired back, officers said. Balderas was shot in the stomach and the resident was shot in the arm, the Post said. The resident was sent to a local hospital and released soon after, officers said. Police didn't specify if Balderas knew the victim. Balderas, who checked himself into the hospital, was arrested after staff saw the gunshot wound, the release said. Balderas was booked into the Weld County Jail on charges of attempted murder, attempted burglary, assault, felony menacing, and criminal mischief, police said. So, what if this guy inside the home didn't have a firearm, huh? What if he had to wait 3 days to get a firearm? What if he wasn't allowed to legally own one because our governor and the legislature didn't think he should? Well, he might be dead right now. He had a violent criminal kicking down the door, firing into the home. You're telling me that people, those guys in the home, these innocent homeowners potentially, I mean, we don't know all the details, of course, but each individual has the ability to defend themselves. Any government official who tries to take that away is on the wrong side of history, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and move on. KOAA News 5, Southern Colorado, KOAA.com. Police investigate after ballot cast by dead voter. Watchdog group flagged suspected fraud in election complaint. Last updated November 16th, 2023. A suspected case of voter fraud in the Colorado Springs municipal election this past April has been referred to the police for investigation, according to the city's attorney's office. The group, Integrity Matters, sent an email in late September to the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder that alleged multiple irregularities, including 2 instances of ballots being returned by voters who had died months before the election. City Attorney Juanetta Massey investigated, even though no formal complaint was submitted to the city. She released a report Tuesday detailing her findings. She found the majority of claims made by Integrity Matters did not violate either the city code or state election laws. Massey said one of the ballots, mailed to a deceased voter, was returned by the Postal Service, indicating that the voter had died. The city clerk's office did not process or count that ballot. The other ballot in question has been referred to the Colorado Springs Police Department at the request of the city clerk for investigation and potential criminal charges, Massey said in a report. So very interesting to see. There's always a lot of talks about voter fraud, big issue these days. So there's at least one instance out there. I'm sure it happens more often than just one, but one time where somebody's been caught. We'll see what happens with that one, but wanted to share that with you out there. Move on here to denverpost.com. Aurora progressives look for answers after election losses put them an extreme minority in city government. Conservatives, including re-elected Mayor Mike Kaufman, will have 8 of 11 city council seats. So, of course, a very interesting article. Somebody who pays attention to electoral politics, find it very interesting to see that, people always say Colorado's blue, Colorado's taken over by the Democrats, there's no hope, I'm getting out of here. But then you see something like this, and it makes you wonder what's actually going on. Do the individuals in the city, are these individual voters in this off-year election maybe not really liking the direction things are going in Denver? Maybe they don't like all the crime, the homelessness, the rising prices, the rising taxes on everything. It could be that voters are open to supporting candidates who are going to be a little more common sense in their approach. Updated November 17th, 2023. As each round of results came in at the Conservatives' election night watch party in Aurora, the volume of the crowd grew louder. Soon, City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky took to the mic to call it. Mayor Mike Kaufman had won re-election, emerging victorious with most of the other Aurora conservatives on the ballot. The celebration was a repeat of 2021, when conservatives took back effective control of the officially nonpartisan city council from progressives in the left-leaning city, a development Councilman Juan Marcano had called a gut punch. But this time, Marcano was among the progressive losses, defeated in his mayoral challenge of Kaufman. He and other candidates who had hoped to reassert Aurora's progressive voice were left struggling to account for why conservatives widened their council margin in the November 7th election. The council will have just 3 Democrats on the 11-member body, outnumbered by 8, including Kaufman, who are either Republicans or largely aligned with that group. Elected officials and political observers have varying theories about what led voters in the state's third largest city, also its most ethnically and racially diverse one, city, to elect right leaning candidates to represent them. They range from a pro Republican skew in outside spending and differences in campaign strategy and messaging to low voter turnout, along with speculation about voters' lack of awareness of candidates' party affiliation. So, very interesting. Dive into that article if you want to know more. But, people can win on a lot of different for a lot of different reasons, and you shouldn't lose hope. There's a lot of good opportunity out there for people willing to put in the work. Let's move on. So we talked a little bit about natural gas and oil earlier. This is from CPR.org, November 16th, 2023. Why is Colorado off track to miss its first debate climate goals? Short answer, cars. Yep, that's right. Expect more anti-car legislation to be presented in the state legislature and possibly to Colorado voters. Absolutely wild that these people are against our automobiles. Colorado's struggle to decarbonize its transportation system has it set to miss its first legally mandated climate targets. Absolutely ridiculous. The state is making significant progress in reducing greenhouse gas emissions by shifting away from coal fired power plants toward wind and solar power. Oil and gas regulations are also expected to help push down Colorado's contribution to global warming. But a new state analysis released this month shows that without aggressive new policies, hear that, aggressive new policies, the state will likely miss its first two sets of greenhouse gas reduction goals set for 2025 and 2030 due to slow progress cleaning up emissions from the transportation sector, a persistent challenge chiefly because of the state's long embrace of automobiles. Well, I'll tell you what, people, you can't really live in Colorado without having an automobile. Colorado is very much a commuter state, especially with this sky high rent, sky high property prices. It's almost impossible to find a property in the same area that you live for most working class Coloradans. They need a car. A car is one of the best indications of a person's ability to move up the economic ladder. So any attempt to go after automobiles needs to be fought. It needs to be pushed back. These politicians, if they go after our cars, they're going way too far. All right. Of course, you probably saw this this week from Denver7.com. Judge rules Trump is eligible to appear on the Colorado ballot in 2024, much to the cries of Jenna Griswold, our activist Secretary of State, who's trying to get Trump barred from the election. Updated November 17th, 2023. A Colorado judge on Friday ordered Secretary of State Jenna Griswold to place Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump on the state's primary 2024 ballot, ruling that while Trump had engaged in an insurrection related to the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, it was unclear whether a Civil War era amendment forbids those who engaged in an insurrection from holding office applied to the presidency. So you can read through all of this, of course, if you'd like. I think it's probably a good thing. Trump is the former president of the United States. A lot of people support him. Plus, if we have open elections, of a democratic system that people keep talking about, then he should be allowed on the ballot. So there we go. Let's move on. Thought this was interesting. A Westward article from November 13th, 2023. Colorado hits 7-year low in marijuana sales. So very interesting. Also interesting that how much tax money is being lost because of this. There's so many programs out there that have been relying on marijuana tax money that now that that money's not coming in, they don't know what they're going to do. A lot of reasons why this could be the case, why sales are down so low. I think a big part of it is that other states that are not Colorado have legalized marijuana, and so people are buying it there rather than coming to Colorado to buy it here. Colorado marijuana sales dropped on both a monthly and an annual basis in September 2023, according to the State Department of Revenue, hitting the lowest revenue total for that month since 2016. Dispensaries tallied just under $128 million in September, DOR data shows, with about $113.1 million in recreational sales and slightly over $14.8 million in medical sales. That's the second lowest monthly medical marijuana sales total ever recorded since 2014. September sales figures are 13% less than the 146.9 million earned in September 2022 and almost 30% less than the same month in 2021. On a month-to-month basis, however, the decrease is slight, and historical DOR data shows that dispensaries typically see a decrease in revenue from August to September. So very interesting to see marijuana sales going down. Of course, people are not too happy with all the taxes associated with it. A lot of people are growing it on their own, and it's more potent than it's ever been, which means people don't have to buy as much, right? You see a lot of these anti-marijuana people complaining about how potent marijuana is, but hey, it means people don't have to smoke as much. They don't have to buy as much to get the same effects that they're looking for. So very interesting information out there on Colorado's big marijuana industry. Let's move on. AspenTimes.com. Colorado Legislature will introduce bill hiking taxes for short-term rental properties. November 15th, 2023. A bill that would significantly increase taxes for properties largely used for short-term rentals will be debated in the coming legislative session, which is in January, after a committee of lawmakers agreed to let the bill move forward on Wednesday. If approved during the 2024 lawmaking session, the bill would classify any property used as a short-term rental for more than 90 days per year as a lodging property beginning in 2026. That would nearly quadruple property taxes for an estimated 24,000 short-term rental properties in the state. The property tax assessment rate for lodging properties in 2023 is 27.9%. For residential properties, it's set at 6.6765%. So very interesting there. In general, I do not like taxes. I don't think this is a great idea for a lot of reasons. Short-term rentals could be a nice quick fix for somebody who might be experiencing domestic abuse, for example, maybe a homeless person on the street, somebody who's going through some housing issue. You can do a short-term rental relatively cheaply for a night or two to figure out what they're going to do next. Maybe on their way out of town, something like that. So making that more expensive is not necessarily a good thing. Of course, it's going to cost some people some money. It's going to also force people to maybe not rent their second home, not rent their property, which I know is an argument in favor of this for a lot of people, right? A lot of people blame this Airbnb system, this whole market out there for short-term rentals for a lack of housing on the market because people just keep the home, rent it out, make some money off of it. So we might see housing supply kind of open up a little bit and some prices come down potentially because of this. So very interesting. We'll see how it plays out during the 2024 legislative session. I got this email. I got this email sent to me. I'm not sure who Rhino Watch Colorado is. They have this whole website, rhinowatchco.com. Thought it was pretty interesting. Just wanted to share it with you here. You can definitely check it out if you're interested. But they are calling themselves the voice of grassroots Republicans. Other news and political websites in Colorado are controlled by establishment interests and either ignore grassroots news and information or report on it in a negative light. Rhino Watch Colorado is a one-stop resource for news, editorials, podcasts, and websites that cut through the establishment liberal spin, revealing the rhinos and supporting the grassroots patriots. So very, very interesting. Keep an eye on who these people are and what they're pushing. Of course, they're going after Larry Liston here, putting him on the wall of shame. Just to tell you about what's going on with Larry Liston, if you hadn't heard. So this was November 17th, 2023. State Senator Larry Liston earns a spot on the Rhino Wall of Shame. Liston, a longtime El Paso County establishment rhino, has been censured by the Colorado GOP Executive Committee for abusing his political power by targeting the husband of grassroots warrior Vicki Tompkins, the El Paso County GOP chair. Liston falsely claimed Tompkins chest bumped him. The Colorado GOP released videotape receipts where Liston admits he coerced the Colorado Springs police chief to file false misdemeanor charges against Tompkins. Fortunately, jurors saw through Liston's lies and found Tompkins not guilty. So very interesting there to see these people out there pushing this agenda. Keep an eye on that, I guess. All right, last thing I want to talk to you about this week. We have a great meetup coming up on Wednesday at the Goat Sports Bar in Greeley. It's Liberty on the Rocks, Northern Colorado. We meet twice a month, rotating between Greeley and Fort Collins. Building a Liberty community up there. Great social club, way to meet some new friends, talk about philosophy, economics, the news of the day, all of that. So this is Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The Goat Sports Bar, 2514 46th Avenue in Greeley. I hope you can join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a great time to have some drinks, some great discussion, talk about philosophy, free markets, self-ownership, all the good stuff the night before Thanksgiving. Look for me or the table with a large box of books on it. So I hope you can join us. We're building this amazing Liberty community here in Northern Colorado, and I hope to see you there. Well, anyways, thank you very much for joining me this week. We'll see you next time, and have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving.